The way you've been taught to think about the fretboard is wrong. And in this lesson, I'm going to show you the 3 ways that master jazz guitarists navigate the fretboard. And you've only been looking at one of them. If you're like most people, you've been taught to think about the guitar in terms of 5 positions. And whether this is caged or another type of guitar system like Pat Martino's linear expressions, a lot of guitarists break the fretboard down into 5 distinct positions. And this can work. But like I said earlier, there are 2 other fretboard styles that jazz guitarists use and that are very important to master the fretboard. Now, why does this first approach of learning and playing things in position, why is this challenging? So the main way we would think about this is we connect each position to a certain chord voicing. And for jazz, we're going to do it like this. You have C major 7. You can have this C major 7, you can have this C major 7, next position here, C major 7, C major 7, and C major 7. So 5 of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, before we repeat again with this C major 7. And the idea is that within those 5 positions, you would connect your scales to each of those positions, all of your arpeggios, and even your lines, your improv ideas within each of those positions. Now think about this not just for C major 7, but for all of the chords, all of the keys. And quickly you can see how this becomes very overwhelming. And that's one of the problems you've been trying to deal with, is this approach, while very thorough for mastering the guitar, is extremely overwhelming. This is an approach that guys like Pat Martino use frequently, where the benefit of it is that if you're in a certain position at that master level, you would be able to play over any tune, any chord progression without moving your hand. You just stay here in place, and because you know all of the positions, all 5 for all of the chords, you don't have to move at all. So in some senses, it can be very efficient because you don't have to move, but your brain is working overtime to do that, and it takes a long time to be able to get to that skill. So let me give you a couple examples from Pat Martino demonstrating playing within a position. So if you notice, he goes up in position, he's playing this over B flat major here. And we end up spelling out a lot of the notes of the chord itself. So what you do when you're using this approach is you are visualizing the chord with a certain line or scale. Let's look at an example now from Joe Pass where we have a 2-5, so the chords actually change, but you'll notice how we still are visualizing a chord that has a line moving through it, using the same notes that would be within that chord in that same position. So with this line, we're visualizing A minor 7 here and D7 flat 9 here. And notice how the line itself moved us through those chords. Using that C for A minor 7. And then the F sharp, the 3rd for D7, is part of the D7 chord. So on and so forth. So when would you want to use this position? And that's actually something that doesn't get talked about that much, that I'm going to talk to you about with these other 2 methods as well, is each of these approaches to mastering and playing through the fretboard have certain pros and cons, and some approaches are better for certain types of progressions over others. And I'll give you an example now of when you might want to use this method of staying in position. And that's when the chords all together are really in the same key. So let's take an example from Grant Green over Airgen, where all of these chords, it's A flat major 7, minor 2-5 to F minor, it's really all F minor, or could be played like F minor. And so we could just stay in a position that's good for F minor and just play in that spot, whether it's the A flat major or the C7 or the F minor, we're just staying in that same position, so we don't have to move. So here's that example where Grant Green does just that. So notice for this set of lines, Grant Green is just staying right here on F minor. In fact, this is a place that he loves playing over, this position, for this chord progression of a minor 2-5 to F minor, and he does this on other tunes as well, when it's G minor 7 flat 5 and C7. So what you'll find is that these guitarists will figure out certain positions that they like for a certain chord progression that fits over the ideas they like to have, and they'll come back to them frequently. So it's not like, yes, some of these guys might be able to play in any position in any key, but they also have their preferences where 90% of the time they like playing F minor here because that is a great spot for F minor versus just a spot down, which becomes awkward on guitar to play. Okay, so that is this approach of stay. That's the first approach for this fretboard. I'm going to show you two more methods for mastering the fretboard, and this next one is the one that I wish beginners were taught first because it's by far the simplest and it still works beautifully. In fact, Grant Green uses this one far more often than staying in position, and it's this approach of shift. The idea is so simple. You find a position that fits for the chords, but when the chords shift, you shift with the chords. And it seems so obvious, but when you do it in the right way, when you have certain positions mastered and you've mapped out the tune and you know how to shift, then you can comfortably move through the tune as the harmony shifts without having to worry about where you go. So Grant Green does this again over Ergen, and before we get into his exact line, I want to walk you through the thought process here. I want to walk through this section where the chords are D flat major 7, and I'm just going to hit the roots and watch how the harmony shifts. So D flat major 7, then D minor 7 flat 5, G7, going to C minor 7 flat 5, going to F7, and going to B flat minor. So you see how we eventually shift down. We have the shift up, then we're moving down from 10th fret, 8th fret, 6th fret. Okay, so we have that shift down. What Grant Green does here, which is so simple, is he'll play ideas in a spot that fits for the D flat major and for the D minor 7 flat 5, and then when it shifts to the B flat minor, he shifts with it. Here's that example. Okay, so did you grab when that position shift happened? We have an idea here for the D minor 7 flat 5 and the 2-5 for D to G. Then it's going to a 2-5 to B flat minor. So Grant Green just shifts down and plays ideas in this position. And here's the cool thing. I bet you already know how he's doing this position shift. When he's in D minor and G7 and over the D flat major, he's playing as if he's in a C minor pentatonic box. And then when it's going to B flat minor, this whole 2-5 to B flat minor, he just plays all of that in a B flat minor pentatonic box. What he's adding on to that is various chromaticism and language, but the structure of his hand is just basic pentatonic box number 1 for C minor, shift down to B flat minor. And he does this throughout this solo. Let me show you one more example shifting in the other direction, where he goes from the B flat minor, shifting up 2 frets to fit over A flat major 7. Now you might notice that that phrase was so similar sounding to the one we just did, but it actually happened earlier in a solo, and Grant's just reusing some of that language using the same positions. So there's a lot of reuse of material, but not just the lines themselves, the actual positions. He's putting those ideas and has practiced them in certain spots of the guitar, preferentially over others. It helps him navigate the tune a lot more easily. So if you're struggling with feeling like you have to learn every chord, every scale, and all of the fretboard, I encourage you to take up Grant Green's approach. Now, there is another method to this that I think is the most exciting, and it can be a little bit challenging to master. And that is the approach that I see Wes and Benson take. Now, other guys use it as well, but I think Wes and Benson have some of the best examples of this approach, which is what I call the travel method. And this is a way of navigating the fretboard diagonally. So even with the Green approach, we were thinking in position, we were just shifting as the harmony shifts. In the Pat Martino one, we don't need to shift, we just stay there in place, and the harmony can shift and we stay where we are. So when we do it diagonally, we're going across positions. And this is one of my biggest issues with a lot of teaching that I see out there, is it's very easy to present everything in sort of 5 silos of positions. But the reality is that these solos and these phrases happen many, many times across positions. And I see this in all of the different phrases I've transcribed for Jazz Phrase System, and all the different solos I've analyzed as well. And it's really important that you internalize that and understand that, because thinking that everything has to happen within a position will really slow down your progress trying to improvise. So let's look at this example from Wes that I think is a great demonstration of what it means to go across position. And it shows us that he's thinking fundamentally differently than how you might be, or how I might be, thinking of a certain chord playing over A minor, how his approach is so different. So let me break down this idea. So he's starting A minor here. And if this was the Pat Martino example, we might play everything just up and down position here. But Wes is playing through 3 different positions here, all in this one idea. He starts off, and the clue here that you're starting to do this travel method is putting in arpeggios. Most of the time on guitar, arpeggios are played diagonally. So ascending this way and descending this way. Especially if it's done with 2 octaves, we rarely see real solos where they do 2 octaves in position with an arpeggio. Isn't that weird that we get taught that though? So strike that from your memory. Now, once he starts to get into that arpeggio, it's an E minor 7 arpeggio. That arpeggio shifts him up. He's starting to travel diagonally. And now he's going to shift back down with this arpeggio diagonally. Look at that big arpeggio. D, B, G, E, C, B. So it's really 2 arpeggios combined. It's E minor, and that E and G is also part of C major 7, G, E, C, B. So he's putting E minor 7 and C major 7 together. And then this last part's very important too. Wes is not playing, he could have easily done it, but he's not playing the G and A here. Instead, he's playing A all the way down here in the 2nd fret. Now, why would we do this? There's a few reasons for this. My thought process on this, what I kind of gather from how Wes approaches this, it's 2 very important things. One is there's a certain momentum that he plays with, and same with Benson, it gives their lines a certain level of excitement, and they move their hand in a certain direction, and their fingers catch up to follow that and play certain notes around the movement itself. And especially if you're using your thumb, you can feel the difference in how that lays on the guitar when you play that way diagonally with the thumb. It clicks. Something about it just clicks. The other reason is fingering wise. If you notice, if I did that G A here, I would be using the pinky. And Wes and Benson generally prefer not using the pinky. And you get a stronger sound when you do it that way. So if he plays the A down here, he can do it with that first finger and get a thicker sound by doing it. So just that one line, we move all the way through the positions. Let me show you another example where Benson does this approach, and this is a super common one that Benson and Wes and a bunch of guitarists use all over the place for C minor 7. Here's the line. This line very clearly demonstrates the arpeggio that Wes is moving through, and this is the big difference with this travel method, is that instead of tying our awareness to a certain chord, we can't do that when we have multiple positions. It's just shifting too quickly. So instead, our awareness is on these arpeggio paths, which I'll talk about more in a second. So this arpeggio path is C minor, F7. Wes, and in this case, Benson, are thinking of E flat major 7. So we see that very clearly here. That's all E flat major 7 arpeggio. Now in some examples, they would continue down that arpeggio in that diagonal way. He doesn't exactly keep going down the arpeggio, but he still ends up as if he did on this E flat by playing. So we see he still gets to that spot from this D to that lower E flat. The main benefit of using this travel approach for navigating through the fretboard is that you get to play in a more exciting way. Your range is shifting faster than if you stayed in position. Because if we're in position, we have this sort of limited range. If we shift across positions, all of a sudden my range is from, say, this D to this G. And I have a much bigger range to deal with, and that translates to more dynamic lines. The downside might be that you haven't practiced arpeggios in this way, and so you have to build up knowledge of the main arpeggios you'd want to use over certain chord progressions in this diagonal approach and where they fit specifically on guitar. For example, E flat major, where I just showed you. But if you're in a different key, that arpeggio path will look differently. I'll give you some recommendations in a second with that. The last thing I want to show you as an example is how you might combine some of these positions, how great jazz guitarists combine them to get the best of both worlds depending on what they want at a certain part of their solo. So here's an example from Joe Pass where he uses that travel method and then he stays in position to finish the idea. So here you can see that Joe Pass jumps up with the travel using the arpeggio, D flat major. And then once he's there for the C altered, he's all in position here. And part of that's because he's no longer using a 7th arpeggio, and it's also just the spot he might prefer for this part of the tune. So mapping that out is really important as well. If you guys want to learn more phrases like this, you can go to Jazz Guitar Vault and get some of my jazz line palettes for these masters. If you want to look at hundreds of these phrases, check out Jazz Phrase System. If you want to learn guitar from me with my step-by-step curriculum for jazz guitar with repertoire, improv, comping, vocab, rhythm, etc., you can check out Chase's Guitar Academy down below. And if you want to learn more arpeggio paths from Benson and Wes, check out these two different videos, Wes arpeggios and Benson arpeggio paths, and I'm sure you'll dig them.